Hello everyone and welcome to the next instalment of Let's Build a Telephone System utilising the latest version of Laravel and Twilio. So in the last episode it was very basic. We got an access token, we initialised our Twilio device and we started preparing an outbound phone call. Then I realised I didn't set up the API URL to handle the call routing, so we saved that for this episode, which is obviously what we're going to be doing in this episode. So I've already set up my ngrok forward into my local host, and this is the URL we're going to set up. And what this is going to do, when we make an outbound or inbound call to the number or to someone else's number, it's going, because we've linked our phone number on Twilio to our TwiML application, it's going to use the TwiML application, which is then going to use this request URL for our voice. So let's get that URL set up. So we're going to do a root post. We're going to direct it to our phone controller, handle call routing. And obviously in your own production application, you'll probably split this out to a different controller, but for demonstration purposes, let's put it all in one. Then let's create that function. And it's going to take a HTTP request. And let's document it. So what we first need to do is get the number we are calling. So to do that, we just set up a variable and we're going to get the to key from the request, and otherwise if it doesn't exist, set it to null. Then we're going to do an if statement. But before we do the if statement, we want to set up a voice response. Set instance voice response. And this is obviously through the Twilio PHP package, and it's linking to TwiML, which will just give Twilio an XML file. Well, it will generate an XML to give back to Twilio to know how to handle the call essentially. So let's get our if statement in place. So if the dialed number is not equal to our Twilio caller ID, it's an outbound phone call. And we know that because our Twilio caller ID is our Twilio number. And the dialed number, if it's not equal to that, we can assume that we're calling out. So then the next bit that we need to do is actually get the number but remove any special characters. So we'll set up another variable, number, and we'll do HTML special characters dial number. And then we want to dial the number. However, we want to also check whether we're dialing a client or whether there's any symbols or anything like that. So we'll set the dial up first. Dial equals response dial, and the first parameter is just going to be an empty string. Then what we also can do is set the caller ID, and that is obviously going to be equal to our Twilio caller ID, because whenever we call out, we want people to see our Twilio caller ID as the caller ID. And I have set that wrong. Next, let's do a preg match. And this will just check if any number has digits or and format any symbols. So if it gets into the preg match, it's a number. Otherwise, it's going to have symbols and characters, and it's not necessarily a straightforward number. In which case, this will be a client to client, agent to agent phone call. That's for a future episode though. This one would be standard outbound phone call to telephone number. So then what we can do is access our dial variable, and we can actually just attach the number because we know it's an outbound phone call. So what this should do is get the to parameter or key from the request, set up an instance of TwiML voice response, make sure the number we're dialing is not equal to our Twilio caller number, remove any special characters through HTML special characters and convert them to HTML entities, set up an instance of the dial function, set the caller ID of that to our Twilio caller ID, check if the number is an actual number with no any characters or string characters or anything like that. So it's going to be a standard outbound phone call. So then we attach the number to the dial. Otherwise, it's going to be a client-to-client or agent-to-agent phone call. However, that's probably out of the scope of this quick episode. So after this, what we then need to do is return the response. And the way we do that is we convert the response or voice response to a string. And what this will do is convert everything that we've done here in code to a readable XML that TwiML/Twilio can read and understand and know how to handle the call. So this should be all we need to make an outbound phone call. Obviously there's more to it if we do an agent-to-agent phone call, and then we've also got to tag onto this inbound phone calls. So we need to know how to handle inbound phone calls, and for that we'll just do dial number equals Twilio caller ID and else so this will get into this if statement if the dialed number is equal to our Twilio caller ID, assuming it's an inbound phone call at this point. And if any of these two statements fail, it's just going to fall into the else category, and it's just going to respond, thank you for calling up, return that as a string voice response, and then it will end the call at that point. So let's give this a test to make sure it's all working. Now fingers crossed it is, but we will see. So WebSocket open successfully, just make sure we've initialized the device and so forth. Then I'm going to put my phone number in like I did last time, and yes, I'm risking putting my phone number
Thank
out
you
there.
for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this message.
We are sorry. An application error has occurred. Goodbye.
Well,
Thank you for
oh, let's refresh. We didn't handle the putting down side of things, but as you can hear there, if you did hear it, an application error occurred. So let's go see what actually happened with our application. 1228 and HTTP retrieval failure. So the web server returned a 400 or 500 HTTP response to Twilio, misconfigured. It got a 404 response, API call routing. Now I know what this is. Everything in the API.php file is already prefixed with API. So we actually don't need the /API at the start. Let's give this another go. Let's give it a refresh, although we probably don't need to. And let's give this a test. And I'm just going to turn the volume down because that was pretty loud.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this message.
And that has worked. I am receiving the call on my actual mobile. Just to confirm, the number is 0115-647-7288. So that is the Twilio caller number. That's linked to my Twilio account, and it did call out successfully. So that is actually working. If I answered at that point on my phone, you would then be able to hear me through the speakers. Let's just give that a test, see if that works. Yeah. So we're going to hear that message again. unfortunately. So let's turn it down in preparation.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this.
Blah, blah, blah. So it's now going to start calling my mobile. I'm going to turn the volume up just to make sure. Hello, this is a test. Hello, hello, hello. So there we go. The call's been disconnected at this point. It's closed, it's disconnected. We've received a hang up from the gateway. So I've hung up the call at this point. And what we need to then do is update the UI to know that the call has ended. Or we need to be able to code this button in to also then hang up the call. However, for this short episode, I just wanted to get the outbound call working, and then we can update this in the next episode to then do the hang up from our side and also handle the hang up from the client's phone, and also then update the UI. So we can do all that in the 4th episode, and then after that, what we then can do is look at inbound phone calls. So how do we then answer a phone call? We need to update the UI as we would with the outbound and so on. We need to show obviously to the user who's calling, so the caller ID with an accept or reject button. If they accept it, we then need to update the UI, and we should be able to speak at that point. So yeah, there's plenty to do going forward. And then after that point, there's loads of ideas that we could look at doing. There's voicemails, gathering inputs from the person you're ringing or they're ringing you. So I could ring up and it would say press 1 for sales, 2 for support, 3 for everything else, or that sort of thing. I do apologise about that. So I had a family interruption whilst I was in the middle of a recording. Typical, just when I'm recording at completely random hours, so 1 in the morning, and I still got disturbed, so that's unfortunate, and I do apologise for that. However, that I was just getting to the end of the episode anyway, and saying there's lots of plans going forward for this telephone system. We can dig into lots of different areas with Twilio, and another one that sprung to mind is voice recordings, voicemails. We've got task router within Twilio, so more advanced routing for your calls, how to put a caller in a queue, how to direct it to an agent. There's loads of different things that we're going to be touching on this series, and then obviously once we've hit a point where we've touched all the basics, it's then up to you to then go away and code this however you want to utilize it, whether that's contact center purposes, whether you just want basic inbound and outbound phone calls from your web application. As always, if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. It really does help. It makes me know that people are enjoying the content and want to see more of it. And also please subscribe. Every subscription, again, makes me realise that people do want to see this sort of content, and obviously motivates me to then keep putting out this sort of content for you to learn from. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment on the video or just drop me a message. I'll be happy to reply either way, and you can also get me on my Twitter, Instagram or Facebook page. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.